there's a lot of people out there that they feel like their life, they're trying to sing the right words, but it just feels off.
So for your musical friends, it feels dissonant.
That's what I was going to say.
Exactly.
You cut me off.
So it feels like
dysentery.
No, dissonant.
No.
I can gather myself.
You're welcome.
Welcome to the Purpose Podcast. My name is Rachel, and I'm here with my husband, Zac, and we really do believe that God has designed you for a specific purpose to win your world. So no matter where you're listening to this podcast on, whether it's Apple or Spotify, YouTube, we'd love for you to like and share, leave a comment. If you have a question or there was something in there that really encouraged you or challenged you, and share it with your friends. This is really, and this in particular today, I believe is going to be super helpful to us as we walk into a new season.
Yeah.
So as we record our podcast today, we are ending summer and we're going into the fall.
Yeah. You ever notice, just before we get into that, which I get sassed whenever I intro the podcast. Apparently I can't do it well, but whenever I do intro it, do you realize that I always throw an adjective whenever I say I'm here with my amazing, my lovely, my kind, my beautiful wife. Then when it comes to you introducing your husband, dare I say the best thing that's happened to you outside the Lord, our Savior, Jesus Christ, that I don't get. I just want you to pray about that and you consider that.
I will take it before the Lord.
Just take it before the Lord.
I'll remind you though, what scripture says about a man who finds a wife, he finds a good thing, and that doesn't exist vice versa.
Yeah, it doesn't say about husbands because, you know what? I'm not going to say, I won't rebuttal. I just won't say it.
Way to practice self-control.
Yeah, I won't even say it. All right, so hey, we are thrilled that you are with us, and this is a special, this is a fun, this is exciting season of the year as the fall is starting, and obviously it's almost football time in Tennessee. We're all thrilled about that. Rachel is pumped about it. She can't wait to be watching those games. That's exactly right. But so hey, really, what we're calling this season is really back in rhythm. And so we're getting back in rhythm, and really no matter what season you're in. So I was talking to a family earlier today, and they're actually going into a season of being empty nesters where all their kids will be out of the house. And then we have students listen to the podcast that you're starting school back, whether it be high school, middle school, college, whatever it might be. Or if you're a family, you have your kids going back to school, all this stuff. Our rhythm they're all affected in this season. And so here's the question that we get to ask. Will we be proactive or will we be reactive? And so very rarely, if ever, do positive things happen whenever we are reactive, especially if you have a goal. And again, on this podcast, we talk about your purpose, which your purpose is to win the world. So everybody has a goal, no matter what season you're in. You have a goal, and you may have some physical or relational goals, but we always have a spiritual goal of the Great Commission and winning our world and telling people about Jesus and building his kingdom like Jesus told us in Matthew 6. So when it comes to this next season, whenever it comes to schedules changing, seasons changing, are we going to be proactive or are we going to be reactive? And so this is huge. And so this will be really a two-part podcast. And what we talked to before we started shooting, like we're all about the P's right now. Talked about prayer, we've talked about power, and we've got 5 P's around the rhythms of getting back in. Now, babe, could you help us a little bit, discuss a little on, I'm not the musician of the family. You are the musician of the family. Would it help us to understand how rhythm actually works? And so there is we talk about back in rhythm, but we really want that to be a double entendre here. We don't want it just to be rhythm as in like kind of the flow of life, but there's an understanding of like there is not just a flow of life, but there's an order of life.
Right. So rhythm is a strong, regular, repeated pattern of movement or sound. So it's like the principle or the driving part of a song. So if you're listening to a piece of music, there are all different parts that help create what you experience as you listen. But a huge factor of that is rhythm. So how fast a song is played or how often you hear particular notes and chords change how a song feels. And also like how quickly it can finish. So I will use this as an example. Our kids listen to a song that's a regular song, but on the Fun Kids app, on the playlist on Spotify, they have it sped up. So it's sung really fast and they like the really fast version. So the song feels way different. Like it's way more fun. It's not chill at all. It's got a lot of energy to it. The other version is great and it's wonderful and it gets the job done, but there's not necessarily as much energy. And if you're feeling, if you're looking to encourage yourself and you're like, hey, I'm going to listen to something. If you listen to something really slow, it's probably not going to, bring you the energy you're desiring.
Yeah.
And vice versa. If you're looking to kind of slow yourself down, quiet your mind, if you put on something very fast paced, you're going to feel like overwhelmed. You're not going to be able to settle your mind down. So how fast something is, that repeated pattern of sound, so the pattern of your life, the pattern that you continue to repeat can bring you energy and excitement, or it can overwhelm you.
Yeah. And again, like the rhythm of something, it really impacts how we feel. So we don't watch scary movies. Rachel and I, the last scary movie we watched was Paranormal Activity before we got married. Like we were dating.
So,
you remember that?
Yes, I do. What, 12 years ago?
Yeah, it'd been 12 years ago. That's the last scary movie we saw.
13 years.
We do not, I don't like how it makes me feel. That movie still haunts my dreams. And there was a guy driving around. No, that was Saw. I watched Saw before that. Either way, we don't like scary movies, but there's a guy on staff, Isaac, who does short films, and he sent me one of his short films, and it's more of like a suspenseful deal. And I'm watching it, and I realized the score or just the music to it was making me feel a certain way. But it would even be in times where nobody's saying anything. There's nothing really happening, but the music makes you anticipate something like this, like the feeling, the rhythm of it, the tempo of it really all brings you to the spot. And so I just want to encourage you that a lot of times, unintentionally, it's human nature to have a victim mindset, especially when it comes to our schedule and our rhythms. And I have to do this and I have to do that. And I would just encourage you. Romans 8 says that you are more than a conqueror. And so whenever you find yourself, especially going forward in this season, we're going to jump into the P's. But as you go into the season, when you feel yourself being overwhelmed, when you feel yourself being a victim, I need you to stop. Remember what God says about you. And remember, you are in control of at least how you view your circumstances and your situation. You're in control at least of that. And I would suggest a lot of us are in control of even more than that. And so, okay, so again, proactive, reactive. As we head in this season, are you proactive or are you reactive? And these P's are going to be things, really the primary things that set the rhythm of your life all the time, but especially in this season. And we want to ask, are you going to be proactive or reactive? And so the first P that we want to ask, are you being proactive or reactive, would be priority. Now, if we take that straight over to
the
musical part, yeah, how would you compare priority to music?
So the melody line of the song, which is what you sing. So if you're going to sing "Row, row, row your boat," what you normally sing,
row your boat.
You got it.
Gosh, that was good.
That was so good.
That was good.
You're an amazing musician.
Thank you.
That would be what leads, like you feel like you lead, you resonate with, you hear. It is the clearest part of the song. Okay. So the melody is what takes the lead.
So give me a better example. So like whenever I was joking there, row, row, row. So I'm saying the words, but is the melody.
So the tune that you're singing is the melody.
Yeah.
But you can put harmonies around that, which is it fits with a harmony is something that fits. These are pitches that fit with the melody line and the chords that are being played, but they're not the primary tune of the song.
Okay.
It's like a secondary line that happens.
Okay.
So you can hear this in, I was trying to think. So if you listen to country music at all, you'll listen to like Carrie Underwood and Brad Paisley when they sing a song together.
Who hasn't?
They are not singing the same notes. They're singing in harmony. So they might trade who's singing the lead, the melody. But when they're singing together, one person is singing the primary line of the song that you sing along to. And you hear this in all kinds of things that you listen to on the radio, somebody else is singing notes and it sounds really nice, but it's not the same as the lead singer.
Yeah.
So what we want to make sure we know is, hey, what is the lead in our life?
Right. And that's why I want to make sure I didn't want to belabor just the musical side of it, but what is leading? What is setting it? Because I'm not good enough with music to try to sing "Row, row, row your boat" to a different melody. You do that, like sing it to.
So like this is the melody line. Row, row, row your boat
but sing
gently
it,
down the stream.
Sing
I'm
it
going to
like
sing it
Happy
for you.
Birthday
Hold
or
on, but
something.
you have to put them next to each other.
Okay. Sorry.
So you have to. So this is what so that's your basic example. That's what row, row your boat should sound like.
Right.
But if I sing it like this, row, row, row your boat gently down the stream.
I could have done that.
Merrily, 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 life is but a dream. That's not how the song goes.
Right.
The song is row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. But if you find yourself trying to sing row, row your boat the wrong way and everyone else is singing it, you're going to sound awful.
Yeah. Okay. Great.
Even though you're singing good notes.
Well, but you're also you're doing something right, but the priority or the main thing that's supposed to be leading it is wrong. So that's really what I was really hoping that we would gather right here. You can be doing the right things in the wrong order. You can be doing the right things the wrong way and still end up with a hectic, crazy life.
Absolutely.
And so when it comes to priority, if the melody is what leads the song, the symphony, then God and the eternal building his kingdom is what is supposed to lead our life and our family. And so let me ask you this. Is God leading your life and your family? Whenever you think about priority, and I appreciate you sticking with us during that, I really just wanted to make sure, because if you ask, hey, is God the priority? We've talked about that. You've heard that, but I thought there was such a great connection there between you can be singing the right words and you can be singing the right words and the melody's off. Every night I sing This Little Light of Mine to Valor. And there's part of it I'm messing up. He doesn't know. He doesn't care. He just likes that I blow in his face when I say I won't let it out. But I know that there's something askew there. And I feel like a lot of us, even though we're doing a lot of the right things, something in our life feels askew. Mm-hmm. So part of that is a lot of us, I would dare I say the majority of us, we have added God onto the world still being priority. And we've added him on because we believe in Jesus and he's the Lord of our life, but we've added him on. And so now you have these conflicting things of like, sometimes you feel like maybe on Sunday or Wednesday, you feel like my walk with God is the most important, the eternal is most important, but Monday and Tuesday, when you start to get into meetings and look on social media, it feels like notoriety or success or people's opinion is what is most important. And I feel like there's a lot of people out there that they feel like their life, they're trying to sing the right words, but it just feels off.
So for your musical friends, it feels dissonant.
That's what I was going to say.
Exactly.
You cut me off.
So it feels like
dysentery.
Dissonant.
No.
I can gather myself.
You're welcome.
So the two things, you pursuing God and the pursuit of the world simultaneously, it doesn't feel good. It feels yucky. So when you hear two notes, it's like when you hear someone who can't sing, like they can't sing at all.
Why did you look at me right then? Why'd you look at me?
I didn't mean to look at you. Sometimes you accidentally look at people when you're talking to them. When you have someone who can't sing, sing along to the radio and you're like, ooh, that isn't good. That often it's dissonant because there's two notes that are close together, but they rub.
Yeah.
So sometimes we put like the rubby notes, and what we want, that's what it feels like when you're living your lifestyle.
So again, let me ask you, and I really want you to consider this: is God leading? Is God the priority? Is God the melody of your life? And whatever your answer is, if your answer is yes, if your answer is no, why is that? You know what? So why would you say that He is? So, babe, if I could ask you, would you say that God is the priority, is the melody of your life? And then why, just to help people just work this out in their mind too, is He, and why?
Well, I would say He is. So a couple of different things. One is when you look at where our time goes, our time is set up, our schedule, our family schedule is set up around making sure that things of God are elevated. So time with the Lord, so like like for us, Bible time at night is a staple. Making sure we go to church on Sundays and group. Those are all things that we've set up in our schedule. So we have time with the Lord daily. But then you can look at our money. Where does our money go? We give generously. We're generous because God was generous.
Right.
So not just at church, but this is really funny. I was talking with River today, and he was talking about how he shared his granola bar with his friend. And then he got in the car and he shared his granola bar with Valor. And I was talking about how, wow, you're being really generous right now. You're choosing to. So even with the things that we have, sharing, and I'm like, gosh, sharing is really hard. I know,
Right.
but being generous with the things that we have, with the money we have, with our time and our attention. So when we say, that God is, how do I know that He's leading that? It's because I can look at some symptoms and say, okay, this looks like what's our schedule? So when I look at my schedule, I can see what's most important.
Yeah.
When I look at our finances, I can see what's most important. I can look at what I order on Amazon and the TV shows that we watch.
Boy, can you.
And you can see what's the most important thing.
Right.
So I just, for me, that's how I kind of look and say, how do I know where am I investing my life?
Yeah, and I love what you said. Time is huge. Money, and obviously these are very. I don't think anybody likes this word, but they're very auditable. They're very auditable commodities.
Yeah,
you can very easily audit your finance. You very easily audit your time, even though nobody likes to do that.
I hate time
But
audit.
one that's a little less, which is funny that I'm the one bringing this up when you're the creative one out of the two of us. One that's a little less auditable that I think is massive when it comes to where our priority is our talent, what you're great at. And so like you talk about like where's your time go? Like are you serving? Are you spend time with people, loving on people, your money? Like are you tithing? Are you being generous? But your talent, like what you're good at. And so you're obviously we're talking about music. You're great. You're an unbelievably gifted singer. And what has gotten the most of that talent in your life has been the church.
Yeah.
And you're super creative. And what's gotten the most of your creativity, whether you're acting or you're writing songs, has been the church. And so I think something really interesting is whenever you evaluate those things. But first of all, culturally, we have a pretty low view of ourselves. So when I ask you, hey, what are you good at? Like, what are you talented towards? And do you use that? Like we have a friend, Nick John, who he's super gifted at financial planning. And so he leads financial peace groups. He has a talent. And you would say like singing, obviously, everybody wants to worship, but you have a guy who we love, his family, who is like, hey, I maybe I'm not a great singer in this season, so I'm not saying Nick's not a great singer. I don't remember. But he is great with finances. So he uses that talent. So I say all that, like your time, your money, and your talent, where do they go? Because you could call those things your treasure. So like your time is so valuable. Your money, obviously, we get that treasure analogy, and then your talent. Like these are the things that make us or something about us special. And Matthew 6:21 says, where your treasure is, there your heart will be also.
Well, and this is super hard. And I think we have to, there's a tension to manage, not a problem to solve, because some of these things require sacrifices in other places. And there are some things that we want, and I've talked about this before, like your Pinterest family moments. And it might mean that you lay down your Pinterest family moments and you open up that extra space in your house, your office, or putting, your 2 kids sharing a room to create space for another person to live with you, whether you're fostering or adopting and creating a home for someone else, or, inviting people into your holidays. These are things that we can look at and say, hey, I can see who's leading and who's most important based on how I treat things that are important to me.
Yeah.
And so as we come into the season, one of the fall and into the winter, there's a lot of holidays, there's a lot of events, you have all of the things that have to be done.
Yeah.
And so there's some things you're not going to stop doing. If your kid plays sports, more than likely, they might continue to play sports. But how we utilize those things, how we treat them, it matters.
Yeah.
And it can show you very quickly what's most important.
And again, I think sports is a great example because you can only have so many priorities. Dare I say, you can only really have one, like what's most important. Mm-hmm. And then everything else has to filter from that.
This is true.
And so like whenever, and I think this is a good one to go before we go to the next P, because what I would say is the melody like it necessitates what comes next. Like you can't go row, 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 stream. Like you can't do that because it's the boat is what's next. Like another example, if you're not a music person, when we pray almost every night at the dinner table, when we pray, Valor tries to time when somebody's going to say amen, and he either yells pickle or bagok, and we don't know why. He's a weird kid, but either way. And so but you can tell that's out of place. And so can I just ask you, with where your life, your family, but your personal life or your family, either one, with where the melody, the priority is leading it, where are you or your family headed? If you stay on this path for another year, for another 5 years, another 10 years, where are you going to be at? Mm-hmm. Because your priority sets your path, right? And so it sets what comes next. Mm-hmm. And so, this is just a season, which again, we get into with pace. So again, first one was priority, and that was a big one. But the next one is pace. And so again, whenever you think about the connection to music and stuff like that, babe, where would you put pace?
So pace, we can equate that to tempo. So remember when I talked about the song that's really, really fast and the original version is really slow? So that's tempo. It's how quickly or how slowly. It's the speed at which the rhythm, which is the patterns, it repeats.
Right. Yeah. So here's what, again, just let me ask you, like, what's the rhythm of your life? What's the rhythm of your life? And so here, let me give you an example. And we're going to talk more about this, but because this is one of those things, if you're not careful, you'll feel like I'm a victim. Like, so I like the pace of my life is just, it's whatever my calendar is, whatever. And here's what I would tell you is, for me, like, I don't set my calendar, I have an assistant, Tanja and Rachel, like they're always talking and have my calendar. Like either way, I tell, hey, here's what I need to do and all that kind of stuff. And they really set that for me, right? Mm-hmm. They schedule it all out anyway. So, but I never feel like I'm out of control of it. So even though somebody else is putting it in place for me,
why is that? What did you do to make sure that had never happened? Which is
that's why I was saying, again, stepping back to priority, I have these priority moments that they are what set my tempo. They are what set my pace. They are the percussion. So I would say the most pace-setting thing for me is my quiet time. The most pace-setting thing for me is my time in the Word, my time in prayer, and whatever inspiring thing I'm reading at the time. And so what sets how I feel, what sets because I think probably the easiest thing to equate pace to would be the level of peace or anxiety. And so, you know what I'm saying? Like I would say a lot of people, when they feel anxiety, it's the pace is so fast. Like, I don't know if I can keep up with that. And so again, like I would say, even if you're not the CEO, which even if you're a CEO and listening, you don't get to just do whatever you want, but still there's things we have to do. But if we have set our priority above what people think about us, if we set it above being successful and making money, if we set it above people pleasing, then we can set these eternal pace setters, these eternal percussion things in our life to help us build a healthy tempo.
Well, and we have to be willing to, we use the phrase, put everything up on the altar. And so there are seasons if we feel, hey, the pace in our life is off, something is off. We take every single thing we're a part of, all the things that we love and we enjoy, and we put it on the altar. And it's always all good things. It's awesome stuff. And there are some things, so we go through and we say, hey, what are the things that are non-negotiables in our life? Well, you have, like, hey, we got to work. And, all right, our time in the Word, these are negotiables. But TV is not a non-negotiable. That can go. Or, hey, attending this many events. So there was something that we made a choice at the beginning of this year was, hey, we're not going to do more than one. We're not going to be away from our house more than 3 nights a week. So we had to make some decisions. We were doing Win College at the time. And that meant, hey, we're only going to do 1 or 2 dinners with people who want to spend some extra time with us. And we adjusted some of those to even be in our home instead of going out. So we were still able to be on our kids and to do bedtime. So there were just things that were non-negotiable. But we had to put everything up on the altar and say no to the things that challenged the pace that God asked us to walk in.
Yeah.
And if the pace is too quick and we're too busy, you aren't your tempo, it messes up the song, so to speak, because God is asking you to do some things and you can't sing the melody line that God's asked you to sing if the tempo's too quick.
Yeah.
And you'll miss opportunities.
Right. And I think that's probably the biggest thing we need to encourage people with is a lot of us need to slow down our pace. I feel like I'm hearing all over the board right now. I'm so busy. I'm so worn out. I have all this, all this going on. And again, I want to encourage you, priority sets pace, right? And if you feel out of whack, if you feel like your pace is so fast, maybe you're trying to serve 2 masters. Maybe you have 2 priorities you're trying to serve. But something I just want to beg you, if you want to live out your purpose of winning the world, you have to make room for what matters most. You have to make room. John Maxwell says, walking slowly through the crowd. Why would you walk slowly through the crowd? Is it because you're lazy? No, it's because you're looking for an opportunity to do something for God in the crowd. The other day, Rachel and I were on a hike and we were talking and we were talking about important stuff, about the church and about our family. And we were just talking. And I just felt the Holy Spirit lead me to walk over to this couple on the trail and share the gospel with them and talk about Jesus. But even when we're on a hike, celebrate like we're time off on a hike, like I feel this dichotomy of I need to hurry up and rest over here with Rachel. And so I just, for us, like, do you ever make room? Like, are you ever slowing down enough to like listen to your waiter or waitress and how they're answering? Like whenever you ask, hey, how are you today? Like if I ask somebody how they're doing today and they say, okay, I'm going to ask about that. You know what I'm saying? Like if they just say, I'm okay, like it's not like either way. So I can't encourage people more to slow down and take time. We're in such a hurry to get to our next thing. And that's a pace issue. If the most important thing in our life is our purpose to win the world, do we ever slow down around people who could need what God has put inside of us in the peace and the power, or do we ever intentionally slow down around people who don't know Him at all?
Well, and I think we'll say, I'm so busy right now, but it's just a season. It's just a season. It's just for right now.
I'm guilty.
And if you're saying it's just a season and it's been more than 4 months, it's probably not just a season, it's a lifestyle.
Yeah.
And again, when we find ourselves saying it's just a season over and over, it is a cue for us to pull back, put everything on the altar before the Lord. And He loves you and He knows exactly what you need. And I know it's really scary to say no to the things that people expect you to do. But the fear of man is not what brings you life. The fear of God does.
Yeah.
And so this is particularly difficult for me in the holiday seasons or classroom expectations, and you want to be room mom or you want to be at every game and we want to do all the things. But at some point, our season of busyness has turned into a lifestyle of overwhelming.
Yeah.
And now we live with anxiety because we're just like you said, we're so afraid we're not going to get everything done. And I can't be everything that everybody wants me to be because you can't.
Yeah. And we're so worried about that. And we are absolutely not getting done the most important thing, which is our eternal expectation of the Great Commission and seeing lives transformed and seeing that stuff. And so So what's the best way if you were to say, hey, here's a tool to reset your pace? Let's just say theoretically, someone's listening and they say, I am overwhelmed. Yeah.
I'm a single mom, or, hey, we've got 4 kids and everybody is doing something different and I cannot keep up. What are some ways that we can shift the pace?
Yeah, so I would give 2 things. I would say first, which one's going to be no surprise, but first, you have to have time with God. And there's no way. I love you, like I want to be kind, but there's no way that you don't have time to spend with God. There's no way you can't get up a little bit earlier or you can't stay up later. Like there's no way that you can't have time with the Lord. If you're curious where it is, then just go to the screen time report in your phone. And I think you'll find some extra time there where you can spend some time with the Lord. I would say that's the first thing. But then the second thing, and I do this in my journal in some ways, but keep it like I would say eternal impact journal. And so because I think we could all go through and say all these things we're checking off. Like today, you were telling me all the things you checked off. You bought the tile and you delivered this, you did that. But what if we kept an eternal impact journal? Like what I did that had eternal impact. Hey, I stopped and prayed for this person. Hey, I shared my faith with this person. Hey, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. And so but would that journal be bare? And so I don't think that anybody listening to this podcast would want it to be empty, but too many of us would be guilty of it being empty. And so again, like we talked about this a bunch of times, like accountability. And so the people who look at their goals the most are the most successful. Like that's an objective truth. Studies prove, like the more you look at it. So if you had a daily entry at the end of the day for your eternal impact journal, is it going to consistently be empty? And I think the people listening to this podcast, if they were to do that, they would start to know, okay, I'm going to sit down with the Lord in my journal tonight and I'm going to have to give an account. And so I'm going to look for an opportunity. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So once you've determined whether or not you hey, my pace is not right or a priority is off, my encouragement is to do a time audit. And we had mentioned that earlier, but a time audit is where you write down everything you do all day, every day, and do it for a week. And you'll see where there are gaps in time or what you're a part of and then you can take all of those things in your time with the Lord and say, hey, God, here's all the things I'm participating in. What is it that you need me to change? Or what is it that I need to outsource and ask someone to help me with instead of doing it myself? Or where is somewhere that we can make a change so that we can still accomplish it. You are smart. You are resourceful. You have a creative nature. God will give you ways to overcome the problem you see on paper. But we have to be willing to get a piece of reality. And I think we feel really, really busy. Sometimes we really are. The pace is really quick. But sometimes it's just because we're just not stewarding what we've been given well. Yeah. And so your pace could very well be fine, but because we haven't stewarded it well, we're not in our time in the Word. And so because we're not, we have an incredibly large fear of man and we don't want to disappoint anybody. And so we receive things or we add things into our calendar that we would never normally do. Yeah. Right? So your pace could very well be fine, but because we haven't really been a good steward of what we've been given, we find ourselves hurting.
And the last thing we'll say about pace, but we move on to the last P for the day, is you have to know yourself. You have to know yourself. And so we read a book together called, I think it's called At Your Best by Carey Nieuwhof. Yes. The time book. And so knowing what parts of your day are green time, where you work the best, yellow time, where you're not great, or red, where you're sometimes we just feel useless. That's your red time. And so we tend to think that we're green all the time, I could always do this. But then you you try to do something at a certain part of the day and it's like, gosh, and you don't blame it on that part of the day, you blame it on yourself. And that just may not be the case. We're all wired a certain way. But let me give you an example. When I was a student pastor, in student ministry, we had Wednesday service, all that kind of stuff. Well, what I realized, because I just wasn't being very productive, wasn't making all this stuff. What I realized was on Thursday, even though Thursday was a work day, but I was still super drained from Wednesday, is I really took Thursday kind of lax, right? And then I was on my Sabbath was on Friday, and then Saturday, there was some prayer, but there was some stuff. Then Sunday we had service, but my main deal of student ministry really only got Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, so less than 50% of the week. So what I realized in that season, Thursday, I used to say Thursday is the linchpin. Mm-hmm. So I need to get in there, and even if I didn't feel like it, I need to make sure I got time in the Word, I got time in prayer. What was the most inspiring to me? I needed to save that for Thursday. And so you got to know yourself. Yeah. So we have priority, we have pace, and the last one was we have pause. We have pause. Now again, going back to music, babe, obviously there's pauses in music, but how would you connect that to the musical part of our life and our flow?
Pauses are called rests, and rests can be very, very short, or rests can be very, very long. Yeah.
Why would you have a rest in a song?
All kinds of reasons. There's somebody else is singing, and so you take a rest. There's an interlude, and so it's a piece between one part of the song and another part of the song. So you would, and I'm using this as a vocalist perspective, but you would stop singing so that you can get to the next part.
Yeah. One of my favorite parts, I know nothing about music, but one of my favorite parts about a rest or a silence is like whenever it like hits, like right after, like whenever somebody comes in with a great note vocally, or even like whenever the drums come in. But when it goes from like high or flow to a rest, it almost builds this anticipation. Mm-hmm. And so you may be wondering, well, what's this look like in my life? And maybe some of you guys see this coming, but something that I can't express with enough passion is Sabbath. So when it comes to our rhythms, we have to have a Sabbath. Let me give you a verse, which is not the usual verse given for Sabbath, because Sabbath originally started when God made the world. He rested on the seventh day. Mm-hmm. But in Deuteronomy 5:15, it says this: "Remember that you were slaves in Egypt, and that the Lord your God brought you out of there with a mighty hand and an outstretched arm. Therefore, the Lord your God has commanded you to observe the Sabbath day." So you may wonder, what does that have to do? Like, what is God delivering them from Egypt and the Sabbath? What do they have to do with each other? Well, God wanted them to remember the most special thing that has happened to them, their freedom, their independence, the nation that they'll become. All this stuff happened because of His mighty right hand. And so when we rest, we are remembering that actually what is most important about us, what is most important about our purpose, we didn't have to work for. And so I just want to challenge us, me included. If you refuse to take a Sabbath, you have a lack of faith. And not only do you have a lack of faith, you're a bit self-absorbed. I know these are all pretty intense terms to use, but the Sabbath is to take time, go back up to the top of priority and say, God, you are priority. I'm going to stop being, because Sabbath really means to stop being productive. I'm going to stop being productive around these things that the world says matters most, and I am going to rest in you.
There's a great book, I think, that might be helpful for people, and it's called Kevin DeYoung, and there's a section on the
It's called Kevin DeYoung?
No, it's called Crazy Busy by Kevin DeYoung. And he does a great job of talking about basically like your the problem of being busy, like the inability to rest or the inability to set a healthy pace. And there's a section on the Sabbath in there that is some of the best content I've ever read. And it's a very short book because busy people are reading it. He does a great job. You can get it on Audible or you can get it on Amazon. But the book did a great job for me just setting my mind in a place of saying, hey, why is it? What is it that you believe in, that you believe more than God is who he says he is?
Yeah.
And so one of those things was like, hey, I believe that if I don't do it, that I'm a failure. And there was this there's this lie that I believed that I had to be, for lack of a better term, God. And I'm not. The only thing that can do it all and be it all and is enough is God. I'm not enough. I have my own piece of the kingdom of heaven to bring to earth, and I'm responsible for that alone. And so what can happen is, especially if if you tend to overfunction for people, or if you are, if you're a performer by nature, or you get your value and worth from being needed by others, you will continue to find your value and worth and be unsatisfied and anxious and busy, because what you've tried to do is carry more than your part of heaven to earth.
Yeah.
And God's the one who assigns that. So we have to trust, and you don't really know if you're being obedient or not. If you're not in the Word and you haven't spent time with him, it's really difficult to discern what he has for you. And you can take that day by day.
Yeah. And I really just, if I could make this super personal, I do, at the end of every quarter, I'll do a 2 days of solitude. And this last one, I'll do it, and I have 2 days. And then on the last day, Rachel comes for dinner, and I kind of debrief to her all the things I've been thinking through and praying through and feeling. And I was just really transparent. And I just said, I just feel like a loser in this season. And she was like, well, why do you feel that way? And I was like, I feel that way because the church isn't growing in these areas. And it bothers, I feel like I feel like a loser. And which I know that's not true. Like that's not where I get my worth from. But Rachel just said, hey, do you think the Lord could, all the things that I cared about mattered, like people serving, people coming, like people in attendance, like these things matter.
Faith,
yeah, people sharing their faith, but and God cares about them. But Rachel just asked me, hey, is God going to let those be successful whenever you put your value and worth in that instead of in who he said, like, can he trust you with success, essentially? And the answer obviously was no. If I felt like a loser because those things weren't moving forward, like that's crazy that I would feel that way. I'm not saying I don't still wrestle with that, but again, God trusts us. So again, like Chick-fil-A, the most lucrative day it's debated between Saturday and Sunday. Because a lot of people say Sunday is the most lucrative day for fast food, and Chick-fil-A is closed. And yet they crush. I know some people say it's not fast food, whatever they say, quick service, whatever you call it. But they crush other restaurants. Why? I believe it's because of the favor of the Lord. And so as we wrap up this podcast, and you think about, if you want the favor of the Lord on the rhythm of your life, but you will not take a Sabbath, you will not take a rest, to reprioritize him, because it just leaks, right? Going back to the priority of the pace, and we have to pause. But the priority, the world is constantly pulling at that, trying to pull us away from God being the priority. Because if God's a priority, we inevitably are going to build his kingdom. We inevitably are going to share our faith. And the devil will do absolutely anything to keep that from happening. And so I want his favor, and that's worth pausing for me.
Well, and so you may not, like, your schedule may be set up right now and your finances to have no pause. And that means this will probably not happen immediately. Like, you're going to say today, well, I'm going to do it. Okay, well, your life is not set up for you to do it. So it takes planning and looking ahead. And maybe for you might say, hey, I've got to get in a circle of believers who can help me look at where I'm at today as I work to honor God. So what is it that I'm going to need to make that happen? Does that mean I need to get a roommate? Like, legitimately, if I didn't work 7 days a week, does that mean I need to, I live by myself and I've got everything I want, but you know what? For me to honor God, I need to make some changes. Do we need to sell our house and get a smaller house? Do we need to not take 2 vacations, take 1 vacation? Do we need to change where we buy our groceries? And these are things that you may not want to do, or you say, gosh, I'm not going to be a part of that club this year. These are hard decisions to make. But you can sit down. This is why having a small group or a local church is so important, so that you can get some wise counsel. So find some people who operate and have a Sabbath and sit down and say, what is it that you did? Or can you help me think through how I can follow Jesus well in this?
That's right. So, hey, just to wrap it back up, we care desperately about your rhythm. And we're getting back in rhythm in this season. So it's an opportunity for you to reevaluate, reassess, and then reengage. But as you evaluate your rhythm, I want you to think about what's your priority, what is your pace, and what is your pause. Because you absolutely have a purpose. And from Jesus' perspective and ours, your purpose is to win your world. And so we love you. We believe in you. Let's get back in rhythm together so that we can win the world. Let's do it this week. We love you. We'll see you next week.